3. Ronaldinho. He's got Sergio Ramos against it. 3 against 2. Ronaldinho into the area. Ronaldinho! 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 What a goal! That is magnificent! That is why he has got the golden boot.
They didn't call him a footballer. They called him a magician in boots. Pelé once said he was one of the most talented players I've ever seen. Zinedine Zidane admitted Ronaldinho was the hardest player I ever faced. You never knew what he would do next. And Lionel Messi himself said, "He taught me everything. He made me fall in love with football again." In 2005, he was the king of football, standing on top of the world with a Ballon d'Or in his hands, his name sung by millions. That same year, he silenced Real Madrid's Santiago Bernabéu, gliding past defenders so ruthlessly that their own fans stood and applauded him. That doesn't happen in football. But this was Ronaldinho. And yet, just 3 years later, that same magician was benched. His smile dulled, his spark slipping away. And to this date, fans are still wondering, how does a light that bright burn out so quickly? And how did the man who made legends bow their heads become a cautionary tale? Now, before there were cameras, before the cheers of 90,000 fans, Ronaldinho was a barefoot boy in Porto Alegre, Brazil. His father, João, worked at a local football club, but tragically passed away when Ronaldinho was just 8 years old. The loss could have crushed him, but football became his language, his escape, his way of communicating with the world. He spent his days juggling the ball on gritty futsal courts, where the space was so tight he had to learn how to breathe between defenders. This is where his artistry was born, not from coaches, but from street games where creativity was survival. At 13, he scored 23 goals in a single match. Even among Brazilian prodigies, he was an outlier. At Grêmio's youth academy, he played with a freedom that baffled his own teammates. They followed drills, he freestyled, and maybe that was why nobody could stop him. In one iconic moment, during a rivalry match against Internacional, Ronaldinho flicked the ball over the head of Dunga, Brazil's 1994 World Cup winning captain, leaving him humiliated. That moment turned him into a national sensation. He wasn't just good, he was fearless. The world was watching now, and his journey to Europe was inevitable. But nobody could have predicted what would happen when that street kid took his first step onto football's biggest stages. By 2001, Paris Saint-Germain came calling. France expected a polished superstar, but what they got was a storm they couldn't control. His elastic dribbles, nutmegs, and outrageous free kicks left defenders guessing and fans mesmerized. Even then, though, whispers were growing louder. He missed training sessions. He stayed out late. Some questioned his focus. But every time matchday came, the genius reappeared, making excuses unnecessary. In 2002, Brazil was desperate to recover from the heartbreak of losing the World Cup final in 1998. Ronaldo Nazario was back in form. Rivaldo was dangerous. But Ronaldinho was their spark. Against England in the quarterfinals, he stepped up for a free kick from nearly 40 yards out. Beckham stood in the wall. Seaman was ready. And then, like he was bending the laws of reality, Ronaldinho floated the ball high, impossibly perfect, over the keeper's head. The audacity stunned the world. That moment didn't just win Brazil the match, it announced a new kind of player. A street footballer with the fearlessness of a kid and the execution of a master. Brazil lifted their 5th World Cup, and Ronaldinho became a household name. That summer, it was clear. Football was about to change forever. In 2003, Barcelona signed him in what would become one of the most pivotal transfers in football history. At that time, Barcelona was in turmoil. Real Madrid had assembled a team of superstars: Zidane, Ronaldo, Beckham, Figo. While Barca struggled with instability and politics, they needed more than a striker, they needed a saviour. Ronaldinho arrived with a grin that made defenders nervous and a style that made fans fall in love with football all over again. In his first matches, he didn't just score, he entertained. He'd trap the ball with his back, juggle it mid-match, and humiliate defenders with flicks and nutmegs. Overnight, Barcelona became fun again. He brought joy back to the Camp Nou, and with it, victories. By 2005, Barcelona was dominant. Ronaldinho had won back-to-back La Liga titles and delivered their first Champions League in 14 years. He was crowned FIFA World Player of the Year twice and claimed the Ballon d'Or in 2005. But one night, more than any trophy, immortalized him. November 19th, 2005. El Clásico at Santiago Bernabéu, Real Madrid's fortress. Ronaldinho danced past Sergio Ramos, glided around defenders like they were standing still, and scored twice. Madrid fans, bitter rivals who almost never show respect to Barcelona players, stood and applauded him. The only player before him to receive such a tribute was Diego Maradona. Ronaldinho had joined an elite club of legends. Lionel Messi, just a teenage prodigy at the time, later said Ronaldinho was responsible for the change in Barca. It was a bad time for the club, and the change that came about with his arrival was amazing. In those years, Ronaldinho wasn't just a footballer. He was football. Nike turned him into a global icon. His 2005 Crossbar Challenge video went viral before viral even existed, convincing millions that he was magic. For 3 golden years, nobody could stop him. Defenders would try, but they weren't just beaten, they were humiliated. He wasn't scoring goals, he was creating memories. It felt like his reign would never end. And everyone who watched him play has a story. Maybe it was that free kick against England. Maybe it was the night he silenced the Bernabéu. Or maybe it was just that grin that made you fall in love with football. Comment your first Ronaldinho memory below, because that spark he gave us lives on in every fan who remembers. Sadly, nobody knew that cracks were already forming beneath the smile. Magic is a gift, but form is a habit. And by 2007, Ronaldinho's habits were slipping. Though he scored 21 league goals that season, his fitness was no longer impeccable. Muscle injuries slowed him down, and stories of his nightlife became impossible to ignore. Reports claimed he missed training, that he was out late enjoying Barcelona's nightlife. Teammates whispered about his absences, and the club started worrying that his influence on a young Messi might hurt the team. Years later, as reported, Alexander Hleb allegedly revealed that Ronaldinho and Deco often arrived at training drunk. The myth of Ronaldinho as the ultimate professional was gone. Pep Guardiola was brought in as manager in 2008, tasked with restoring order. His first move was ruthless. Ronaldinho had to leave. Club president Joan Laporta softened the blow by saying Ronaldinho needed a new challenge. But the truth was clear. The club was building around Messi, and Ronaldinho's lifestyle no longer fit the vision. It was shocking. Just 2 years earlier, he was the best player in the world. Now, at 28 years old, Barcelona was ready to move on. The magician who revived Barcelona was suddenly expendable. And this was only the beginning of the end. Milan was supposed to be a fresh start. Italian fans welcomed him like a king, believing the magic could return. For a brief moment, it did. He scored a derby-winning header against Inter. reminded the world of his brilliance, and even led Serie A in assists in the 2009-10 season. For a flicker of time, it felt like the old Ronaldinho was back. But those highs didn't last. Milan's nightlife called, and once again, the same whispers followed him. His fitness slipped, and his influence waned. Carlo Ancelotti wasn't surprised. His physical condition has always been precarious, he admitted. His talent, though, has never been in question. By 2010, Milan's patience was gone. Massimiliano Allegri benched him, and newspapers painted a harsh picture. Once hailed as the greatest player of his generation, Ronaldinho heads back to Brazil, more famous for partying and questionable weight than his sidesteps and outrageous overhead kicks. At just 30, when most legends still dominated, Ronaldinho was quietly leaving Europe through an airport terminal. His era at the top abruptly over. Returning to Brazil in 2011, Ronaldinho signed with Flamengo, and the hype was unbelievable. Tens of thousands filled the Maracanã to see him unveiled, and his first season was electric. He was named Brazilian Footballer of the Year. But consistency slipped again. Behind the scenes, disputes over unpaid wages and missed training sessions caused chaos. And soon, he was gone. Yet, there was one last spark. In 2013, with Atlético Mineiro, Ronaldinho rediscovered his passion. He led them to their first ever Copa Libertadores title, was named South American Footballer of the Year, and for a brief golden stretch, he reminded the world of his genius. The vision, the free kicks, the smile. It was all back, if only for a while. He wasn't the dominant force of Europe anymore, but his magic was undeniable. From there, his career entered a journeyman phase. In Mexico, with Querétaro, he delivered flashes of brilliance, but nothing sustained. His 2015 move to Fluminense was meant to be a swan song, but Ronaldinho himself admitted he couldn't perform as he once had. Just 2 months later, his contract was terminated by mutual consent. In 2018, after years of inactivity, he formally retired. No farewell match, no big send-off, just an acceptance that the magician's wand no longer worked. Looking back now, Ronaldinho's career is both a triumph and a warning. He brought joy to football that statistics can't measure. He made the impossible look easy. His highlights are still some of the most replayed moments in sports history. Lionel Messi, Neymar, and countless others grew up idolizing him. He didn't just play football, he made people fall in love with it. But his peak was brief. Pep Guardiola once said, "Ronaldinho, if he had been more disciplined, could have been one of the 2 greatest players in history." That's the paradox. He had the talent to be the undisputed GOAT, but he chose joy over discipline. And maybe that's why we loved him so much. In his later years, Ronaldinho faced struggles off the pitch, including legal troubles that saddened fans. But those challenges didn't erase the memories he created. The smile he wore when humiliating defenders, the awe he inspired, the magic he made football feel. It's all part of his legend. Ronaldinho's story is a reminder that genius is fragile, that magic is fleeting, but its impact lasts forever. He wasn't built for numbers. He wasn't about consistency. He was about feeling. For 3 golden years, he gave us the purest form of football joy. And even though that spark dimmed far too soon, for anyone who watched him play, it will never truly go out. The magician may have left the stage, but his spell remains.